Welcome back to Phonics in Action. In this episode, we are looking into the Phonics shop window at the topic of consonant clusters. Imagine you have taught all 26 letter sounds and the consonant digraphs. Your students can read words like ram and yak and ship, but many words in their decodable books now start and end with 2 and 3 sound consonant clusters like stamp and string. Some students do not like these words. They look too difficult. They are much longer than the words they know how to read. Now, to the unsuspecting newbie teacher, it seems like an innocent next step to teach consonant clusters, but some programs do not teach them. Why not? Well, perhaps it is to save time, but then sometimes a penny wise is pound foolish. If you go too fast with phonics, you leave the students behind. It's better to take it steady, and in this phonics program, we teach them. I mean, there's no evidence to say it does any harm, and my own experience is that it is a good thing to teach them. A definition? Right. What are consonant clusters? Consonant clusters are 2 or more consonant letters together that make their own sounds. A cluster is not one sound or even a new sound. It is those 2 or more consonant sounds said quickly together. For example, st, fr, tw, squ. We can also have a digraph cluster like sure, but we have to remember it is a 2-sound cluster, not 3 sounds. And the history. Are clusters part of the story of English? Yes, definitely. Old English had many clusters. Some have gone, but quite a few remain. We still use Old English clusters in initial position, like bl, brr, fr, gl, sk, sl, sm, st, sp, sw, dr, tw, skr, spr, str. And in final position, we still have mp, ok, op, unk, and, old. Of all the clusters in Old English words, 30% were at the start of the word and 11% at the end, and the others were in the middle of words. Yeah, more than 90% of clusters were 2-sound clusters. The most frequent clusters in Old English were st and brr. Diagnostics. Do we need to teach them? Well, the best way to decide is to do some diagnostics. If you use the phonics check that we recommend and students make errors on the consonant clusters in the check, then yes, go ahead, teach the clusters. For example, if they read plu as palu, sma as sla, trub as the rub, this indicates difficulty. Now let's imagine we are in the staff room and the discussion is about consonant clusters. Here is a possible Q&A. Question 1. Do we say blend, cluster, or adjacent consonants? Well, the answer is, for a long time, teachers and experts did say blend, but now many prefer to say cluster. The main problem with blend is that it suggests the 2 sounds blend like an omelette into one sound, when that is not what happens. You need a term that suggests separate sounds. Cluster does that. Another option instead of cluster is to say adjacent consonants. That works well, and some programs use that term. Another question. Are clusters only at the beginning of words? No, some clusters, for example, st, gr, they're at the beginning, and some clusters, for example, uk and mp, are at the end. There are a few clusters, for example, st, that can be at the beginning, stop, or at the end, best. Number 3, how do I check that it is a cluster? Well, the secret is to count the consonant sounds in the cluster. For example, the tr in trip has 2 sounds. The str in string has 3 sounds. Question 4. What about the as in lamb? Is that a cluster? Well, looks like a cluster. It walks like a cluster, but it is not a cluster because one letter is silent. Has 1 sound. And the same goes for the KN, knife, the GN, gnome, and the WR, wrong. They are silent letter words. They are not clusters. They only have 1 sound. Question 5. Do you think teaching clusters overloads the brain with dozens of extra patterns? I mean, if students already know the single sounds, isn't this just extra teaching for no reason? Well, I agree that many students have no problem with clusters, but some students do. They stop in their tracks. I mean, teaching to say the clusters takes the fear out of clusters. I drew up a chart with all the main clusters and I use this to practice them. It doesn't take that long, just a minute or so. Question 6. What clusters are easiest to teach? Well, a cluster at the beginning of the word is easier. A cluster at the end is harder. I mean, this applies especially to nasal clusters like n as in bend, nt as in went, nk as in sink, mp as in lamp. The st cluster at the end, as in best, is easier than those nasal clusters. Question 7. When do we start to teach these clusters? Well, teach the clusters only when the student is very familiar with the 26 letter sounds. Question 8. How do we teach the clusters? Well, the best strategy is show, not tell. Show them what to do, then let them do it. Say each phoneme in the cluster separately. For example, in clock go clock, slug. Ook in milk, the ft in gift. Question 9. Do we sound out gr as gr or gr? Well, avoid that schwa. Say sl, not sl. I mean, some clusters are tricky, like tr as in tram, but try to minimize that sound. And as students practice more, they'll say those clusters more quickly and without the schwa sound. And question 10, how fast do they read the clusters? Well, an excellent time for the 34 clusters on that chart, including digraph clusters like shur and thur, is 25 seconds. Try to build speed. Students enjoy reading the clusters quickly. As they get faster, the clusters are not scary anymore. And keep a record of their times so that they can see they are getting faster. Can anything go wrong in teaching them? Well, nothing can go wrong, except that when you are teaching clusters, it can be confusing if the students are not sure what a cluster is. For example, what do you think of this teaching many lesson? So the teacher wrote up a list of consonant cluster words on the board. And she said, right, what is this word? It's the name of a color. Yes, blue. Its letters are BL. The sound is bull. What is this word? Crab. Sound is cr. This is a tricky one. She points to the KN. The K is silent. Here is another word with PH. You have to visualize it in your head. PH is f. What sound is this one? Pull. Remember, TH makes 1 sound. Well, my feeling about the lesson is that it was confusing. The students were learning some incorrect things. I mean, the teacher said that TH and PH had 1 sound, which is correct. But then she said cl and pull had 1 sound, which is incorrect. The teacher said that bl, pl each had one sound, but they each have two sounds. The teacher included th and kn on the chart as clusters, but they are not clusters. They only have one sound. Students looked confused. A better lesson would be to teach clusters in a more formal way. Give the students a correct definition of cluster and some correct examples. To illustrate, how about you try this mini lesson 1. Hello everybody, today we are going to do something exciting. We're going to read words with consonant clusters. What are clusters? Well, consonant clusters are two or more letters together that make their own separate sounds. A cluster is not one sound, it is two or more sounds. Now if we look at this chart, I'll show you how they work. Now I'm pointing to line 1 on the chart and I'll say the clusters. Bl, brr, cr, cl. Now I'll read the words in the sidebar that have clusters. Black, brush, crab, clock. Yep, the words in the sidebar match the pictures on the chart. And now we're looking at the second line. I would say the clusters. Dr, fur, full, gl. I'll read the words in the sidebar. Drum, frog, flag, glass. Well, great. Well, that's enough for today. We've started to learn about consonant clusters. Many words seem very long, but when you look at them, they often have a consonant cluster at the start or at the end. And this makes them seem long, but they're easy to read if you remember they are clusters. Now we'll go to mini lesson 2. Hi everybody. Today we're going to tackle some more consonant clusters. Remember, a consonant cluster is two or more consonants beside each other, like gr and st, and they make separate sounds. Looking at our chart, we've already done lines 1 and 2. We will go to the next lines on the chart, looking at line 3. Gr, pl, pr, sk. Let's read the words on the sidebar. Grub, plug, pram, skip. Yeah, we're looking at line 4. Sk, sl, sm, sn. Let's read the words on the sidebar. Scarf, slug, smoke, snow. We are looking at line 5. Sp, st, sw, tr, tw. Let's read the words on the sidebar. Spill, stare, swing, tram, twins. Now we're going to final clusters. Now, once your students can read initial clusters quickly and accurately, move to the final clusters on the chart. Well, looking at this line, ft, mp, uk. Do you notice anything about these clusters? Yeah, that's it. These clusters are all at the end of the word. Now remember that when you say a cluster, you say each sound separately. Let's read the words on the sidebar. Gift, lamp, milk. Yeah, the words match the pictures. Yep. And looking at this line, nk, nt, and. What do you notice about these clusters? Yes, they're all at the end of the word as well. Now let's read the words on the sidebar. Trunk, tent, and. Yeah. Now we'll move to 3 sound clusters. Now, everybody, looking at this line, what do you notice? Yep, the clusters have 3 sounds. Some clusters, like these ones, have 3 sounds, like spr has 3 sounds, spr, skr has 3 sounds, skr, spl has 3 sounds, spl, Squ has 3 sounds. Sk. Str has 3 sounds. Str. I'll read the words on the sidebar that have these clusters in them, and the pictures will help you. Scrub, splat, squint, strum. Now we'll move to digraph clusters. Now everybody, looking at this line, sometimes a cluster can have 3 letters but only 2 sounds. This is because 2 of the letters make 1 sound. They are digraph clusters. Now looking at this line, sure has 2 sounds. Sure. Thr has 2 sounds. Thr. I'll read the words with these digraph clusters, and the pictures will help you. Shrek, 3. Did you notice that Shrek has 5 letters but only 4 sounds? And 3 has 5 letters and only 3 sounds. This is because 1 sound is a consonant digraph. Well, we're at the end of that one. That's it. Consonant clusters, all done. The big message for students is that many words, they look long, they look hard, but they're not. They just have some consonant clusters in them. If we explain the clusters to them and move slowly, they'll be just fine. And practice them as much as you can until perfect. If you go too fast with phonics and skip clusters, you may lose your students. As someone once said, a good general stays with their troops. You cannot advance faster than they can go. To put this lesson in a nutshell, what we did was show 1, that consonant clusters have 2 or more sounds. They do not have 1 sound. And number 2, that we teach initial clusters first, then final clusters. And 3, that we leave the digraph clusters until later. And 4, that we leave the 3 sound clusters until later. And 5, that we minimize the sound. We try to say sl, not sl. And number 6, that we practice the clusters slowly at first and faster later. And number 7, that we practice until students can read all the clusters in that chart in 25 seconds. And final suggestion, have fun.